This is going to be my killer tier list as of the Onryo chapter. Um, this does include the upcoming mid-chapter changes, which will probably be in the PTB in a few weeks. So if any major changes happen, then this tier list is already going to be a bit outdated. But as of now, it should be pretty fine. So really quickly, just the criteria for this tier list. In terms of the killers, uh, I'm just gonna, for the sake of the argument, assume it's on a pretty balanced map every time, like Holtar or Wrecker's Yard. I don't want to say it's Fractured Cowshed because anti-loop killers are going to be much higher. I don't want to say it's Mother's Dwelling because mobility killers are going to be much higher. I don't want to say it's going to be an indoor map because Hillbilly and all that shit and Blight are going to be way lower. So for the sake of the argument, we'll just say you're playing on either Coulter or Wrecker's Yard. We're saying the killers are being played to a high standard, but not an impossible standard. Nurse isn't landing every blank. Blight is missing the occasional rush. Spirit isn't perfectly tracking everyone, and Trickster isn't hitting every knife. In terms of add-ons, I'll literally just count up to green add-ons. I don't want to go past that because killers like Myers have very strong purple add-ons like Tombstone Piece. Some killers have very strong iridescence, like say Blight or even Wraith, which would make them a lot stronger and be like unrealistic. So to keep it simple, we'll just keep it on green add-ons. As for the survivors, we'll just assume it's four good survivors. Um, in terms of being in a survivor friends, we'll say yeah, but there's no point in talking about average survivors because average survivors, every killer is at least in the C tier. And there's no point in talking about the absolute top tier comp because then every killer is literally like D tier except for like Nurse and maybe Blight. So it's just going to be like my average games, which is just going to be a couple of good survivors with obviously running the most meh shit possible. Everyone's going to have dead hard. Everyone's going to be a circle of hitting DS. There's going to be med kits and all that stuff. So starting off, we'll just go to the S tier here with Nurse. Obviously not a surprise to anyone that Nurse is the best killer in the game. She always will be. And there's literally no point in talking. You've all heard it before. Nurse is the best killer. That's undisputable. So we'll move on to the A tier, which is going to be the good killers. Start with Blight. I don't think he's S tier, as some people put him, but that's just my criteria. Like to be S tier is basically just to be Nurse or really old Spirit. I mean like Prayer Bead Spirit. Like level, really old Spirit before the Vault animation, before all of that. She was S tier, but I'm going to keep Blight in the A tier just because he does have limitations. You can't use his Blight. Even as a really good Blight, you can still just kind of get shit on by like good RNG for the survivors. For example, like strong loop setups can still really hurt Blight. He can't play every loop, assuming the survivor plays it well. And Blight also relies a lot on 50-50s, especially when it comes to hug tags and stuff like that. You won't be winning every single mind game. And to lose his Blight, all it takes is just a couple of those good survivors. They're dead hard on your hits and they're just making good reads and kind of outplaying you a wee bit. Blight doesn't have that zero counterplay that Nurse has, where if the Nurse plays well and literally just uses her power well, she will beat you in the chase. Blight still has to play really well to have like a good chance of beating you, but you still can run a Blight for a decent amount of time if you make good reads. But that being said, Blight is obviously still really strong. His up to green add-ons are some of his best anyway. You can use Compound 21, which is pretty good. Blighted Crow, which is his best add-on. Adrenaline Vial, which is really good, although overrated, I think. There's just so many good add-ons. Plus, you got the best mobility in the game. You got a really strong chasing power. So yeah, Blight's second best. That's also indisputable in my opinion. Next is Oni. I was originally going to put Oni a bit lower because I was just kind of having a bad time with him for a while. But I sort of got back into him after not really playing him all that much and got good with him again. You could say that maybe. And I have been having a lot better time. That being said, he still has weaknesses. Like just about maybe 2 weeks ago, I had a game where I didn't get a hit until the exit gates were open. It was Fractured Cowshed, but it just kind of shows you how easily on his early game could be abused. I didn't get a hit. Like, think about it. I got a hit when the guy was running through the exit gates. That's how long it took me to get a hit. Which, to be fair, was only like 3.5 minutes. And they somehow got 5 gens done. We won't say they were hacking because, unfortunately, that's just the way DVD is these days. But, it really does show how Oni can get shot on. But I said four good survivors, not four comp survivors on Fractured Cowshed, so that's not going to happen. Your average on a game against good survivors, you will get a hit early enough, and that will allow you to snowball in the end game. So I do think Oni is the third best against that type of survivor, but honestly, against survivors who are literally just playing to get the hell out in 3 minutes like they were, he really is like a C tier killer. Next is Executioner. I feel like this one's also pretty indisputable. He's definitely like a top five killer. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that. You know, in today's meta, where gens just go so fast and all, you sort of have to play like a deck. This tier list isn't assuming that everyone's playing like an absolute scumbag. Like, we're not playing comp here, you know. Like, I'm not assuming that Bubba is hooking someone with like corrupt and deadlock and just face camping them till they die and then getting a second guy with no head in the end game and then face camping him and he gets two kills. I'm not assuming that. But even like there's nothing really stopping from Executioner, you know, even when going for like hook games from tunneling the shit out of someone, which is really handy in today's meta. I mean, Executioner just gets, he's sort of like Oni, where if he gets a good early game, he will win. All he has to do is find someone, torment them, and down them within like the first minute, and the game's basically over then. Because he just has to hook you, tunnel you off hook, cage you, tunnel you out of the cage, and you're dead within like the first 3 minutes. You know, that being said, he is still really hurt by the meta perks like Dead Hard and Circle of Healing. He does have an immobility, so he will just struggle to gain pressure if you don't get lucky in the chase, you know, and land hits through walls, or just when, you know, you're 50-50s and stuff like that. So I do think he is the fourth best, but, you know, you can have some definitely like really rough games with him. And ending the A tier is going to be Huntress. Not much to say about Huntress. We all know how solid Huntress is. A good Huntress is definitely really strong in the chase. Um, there's some loops and some areas where it can be really difficult to down someone as Hunters. But the majority of the map, like Hunters probably can't get a hit on you. It's just sort of a matter of if she gets lucky with like a snowball, survivors grouping up, maybe like a 3 gen, something like that, or if survivors just are keep getting caught out of position and aren't in the best spots, she should have a pretty decent time. But I think if the survivors do play really well and don't really get caught out in bad positions and don't give you the opportunity to snowball, you can find it really hard to win games. But Hunters, you know, once again, solid killer and always will, but just be like sort of sitting at the bottom of A tier. And this is the B tier, which is decent killers. These killers against this group of, you know, hypothetical good survivors we're playing against, should still feel like you have a chance. Even if you lost, you should probably still maybe be able to find some mistakes that you made, which you might have won the game, but there's definitely a chance to win against good survivors using these killers. So the first is going to be the artist. I'm not really still sure about artist where I want to put her because I agree that she is strong, but she's also situationally strong. Like artists can be ran for a really long time if you're in the right spot. Like if you've got a shot connected into like a jungle gym or something like that, like you can just keep looping and connecting these windows, and she'll never catch you because she sort of has to set up. The way artist works is she puts the bird down, and she sort of corrals you into it, sort of forces you into it. But that can never happen if the survivor's got more than one option. So she really works. Like artist basically just has a 100% chance of hitting you if you're in like the corner of a map. If you have no loop to run to, like you will get hit no matter what. Like zero things you can do basically. All she has to do is put a bird down, force you into it, and then you're dead. But good survivors, which we are assuming we are playing against, won't really let that happen. They'll probably run quite early if they hear a terror radius into a decent spot. They'll probably know like I shouldn't run to that pallet in the corner of the map because even if I get to it, she's just gonna zoom me. So I do think artist sort of depends on how lucky you're getting where you're finding the survivors. If you keep finding them in the middle of the map where they're got lots of jungle gyms and stuff like that, you're probably gonna have a bad time. But if you get lucky and you keep finding people in the edges of the map and just really sort of unfavorable spots, you will probably shit on them pretty easily. That being said, you can still track people with your birds. You can kick them off gens. You get good perk synergy. So artist is definitely a solid killer, but there are situations where she can feel really weak, kind of like hunters. And next, which I feel is going to be a bit of a controversial pick, it's going to be Spirit in the B tier below Aris. Yeah, I think Spirit is just really overrated. She's kind of got like Trickster syndrome, but like reverse. And Trickster syndrome is where people still put Trickster really low, despite the fact he is actually a somewhat decent killer now. Um, Sort of the way people still put Spirit really high, even though she's been nerfed to a mm, pretty low mid killer, or like high mid killer, I should say. Spirit's definitely not bad now, but she is nowhere near as good as she used to be. I think a lot of the reason why people still put Spirit really high, I don't want to name names, but it is Obstarva. Like he still puts her in S tier, and I just don't agree with that at all. I play against Spirit a fair amount. I like to play Spirit a lot just to test how strong she is, and she just does not feel good, especially in some places. Like against survivors who just really know how to track that noise, who can really tell like where you're coming from. God, it is so hard to chase them sometimes. And it's actually really hard to track them, especially, let's not forget how inconsistent audio and scratch marks are in Dead by Daylight. They're not a reliable tracking tool, and this tier list also isn't included in iridescence and purples, meaning the people who literally run Mother Daughter Ring and Cherry Blossom every single game and call Spirit good, this tier list doesn't count that. This tier list is Spirit with, just green or yellow add-ons, which are pretty average. So I don't think Spirit is all that. She's still a good killer, but she's nowhere near as strong as she used to be. Her mobility is pretty limited. Her power can be used for mobility, but it's got a pretty lengthy cooldown. So after you come out of it, you do have to wait like 20 seconds to get your power back. If you miss a phase, like if a server jukes you in it, that's once again like at the most a 20-second cooldown, which is pretty huge. And overall, you don't really have a good chance to snowball a Spirit. With the Circle of Healing meta, everyone is fully healed these days. No one is injured. And not just is that bad for Spirit in the sense that she can't track you as easy because you'll never just, run up on someone who's injured. And if they are, they're not a good survivor because once again, this tier list is assuming that it's the usual shit where two survivors will have Circle of Healing, so there basically always will be a boon totem up, and everyone will always be healed. So it's going to be really difficult to catch someone off guard when they're injured. But not just that, if everyone's healthy, Spirit has like zero chance to snowball just because her power takes too long to recharge. You go into phase, you get your hit, you wait on your cooldown, you go into phase again, and you get your other hit. Like that takes quite a long time. That's like a minimum of like 30 seconds. So how are you supposed to snowball? And that's like two perfect phases nearly. You're not getting two good survivors down that fast. So I know I'm saying a lot of negative things about Spirit, but I'm trying to justify her being in B tier. Like, once again, that doesn't make her a bad killer because she's not a bad killer. She's still got a pretty decent chase. And there are definitely some places where there's nothing you could do against the Spirit. But that being said, she has got enough counterplay and enough weaknesses now to exploit, which I think just gives her enough counterplay to be sitting in the B tier for now. Next is Plague, who is also just going to be in the B tier. I think Plague's okay. Um, I'm not sure how to feel about Plague because sometimes she feels really strong, and sometimes she feels kind of shit. I don't know, she's really a 50-50 for me. I will admit, I don't even play Plague all that much. She's definitely one of my least played killers. Um, but some games I really feel like I get shit on pretty hard, and in some games I feel like I just absolutely shit on some survivors. But against the good survivors, she doesn't. She doesn't worry about circle feeling at all. So that's definitely a huge plus to her. But that also comes with a downside that now survivors are going to be absolutely slamming gens. If they're spending zero time booning and zero time healing, like gens already fast enough, but when survivors aren't even doing those other actions, gens will fly. That's the thing people don't really talk about with play. They always talk about how oh yeah, servers can't use their circle feeder and all. Yeah, they can't do that, but at least it sort of buys you a wee bit of time. Plague is just like from the second the game starts, it's just nothing but gens from those survivors, and it really can make you seem really fast. But she does have good snowball potential. If you get everyone infected, pop a crop purge, you really can get a lot of pressure going. The problem with Plague is maintaining the pressure. Oni, when he gets the ball rolling, really can maintain pressure because he keeps getting constant blood furies. But Plague has a pretty hard time doing that because if they don't cleanse, you get one crop purge, and if you don't basically down all four of them with that crop purge, you're not getting another one, and now You're just a killer with no power for the rest of the match, and now you're sort of just stuck in a spot where, yeah, everyone's one hit, but if they just sort of start running early and looping you, there's not really much you can do to get down, and they're just slamming gems, and you're thinking like, realistically, what can I do here? Um, but that isn't every situation. You once again can catch people off guard. You can catch them in bad spots. You can get a good crop purge. Maybe someone might cleanse, and that also helps you out. So I think Plague's pretty good, but she's definitely a hit or miss type character. Speaking of hit or miss characters, we've got Hag. Um, Once again, I feel like I really overrated Killer. When you get four survivors who know how to play against Hag, which we are assuming Hag has literally been in the game since nearly its inception, people know how to play against Hag by now. And when you get four people who do know how to play against Hag and they all have dead hard as usual and are some sort of healings up, you have a really hard time because you know a few seconds into the game, someone's going to say it's a Hag, and they're going to sort of run over to you, and they're going to start setting off your traps as you're placing them, and they're going to sort of run to where they think you spawned as setting off traps there. So you're going to be forced to chase them, and now you're forced to take this chase where you really don't have a web set up yet, and they're just doing gens on the other side of the map. And so you might say, oh, but you don't chase, just drop the chase. Okay, let's say you drop the chase. Well, they're still just going to follow you and set off all your traps, so you sort of have to take the chase. You don't have a choice as Hag. If someone follows you and just sets up all your traps, you have to take that chase. You can't, like, not do it. And then you're forced in that chase where you have to just, actively set the trap instead of having them pre-placed, which is going to be really unfavorable for you. So that's why I don't think Hag is all that good. That being said, she does have her strong moments. If you do manage to get a web set up, she can be really tough to beat, and you have to play extremely careful. Because one bad step in a trap can just completely end the entire game. One bad unhook can end the entire game. That's sort of the way it is against Tag, but you know, some of the teams playing really well, it can be tough to get in those situations, but you definitely have a chance a lot of the time to win the game. A nice, which might be a surprise, is Trickster. Um, I'm gonna put Trickster in low B because I feel like it's unfair to put him way below Hunters. Like, I don't get when people put Hunters up in high A and then Trickster in like the C tier. Like, Trickster is only a bit worse than Hunters. You know, we don't have an actual good Trickster main. I have never seen someone who's put like the same amount of hours into Trickster that I've seen some people play into like people like Hunters and Nurse. I've never seen that before, and it's just sort of kind of makes me sad because I'm like, I think this killer's got potential. I'm shit with Trickster. I find him so hard to play. I can't play him at all. But I still put a lot of time into him to try and get somewhat decent. And even being as pretty shit with Trickster as I am, I still do pretty decent against good teams. Now, I'm just sort of thinking like, what if someone was just really, really good with Trickster? I feel like they would do pretty good. And I feel like he deserves to be in the V tier. But I feel like what people just need to do is just someone sits down and just sinks a ton of time into Trickster on PC, like a crosshair or something, and I think they will do so well because he does have his advantages over hunters. Like the smaller hitbox really allows you to get into places where hunters otherwise wouldn't be able to hit you, and also his defensive potential, with unhooks and stuff like that. So I think Trickster does deserve to be in the B tier. I might move him lower one day, but I just really want to see someone get good with this guy. Next is C, which is the average killers. Now, against a good team, these killers are definitely going to feel like you're probably going to lose. You might sneak two kills. If you're really lucky, you might get a lucky third. But you're likely only going to get maybe one or two, and you're pretty much going to feel powerless. You're going to feel like I got two kills there, and there was basically nothing I could have done to get four. So starting this is going to be twins. Twins have just gotten nothing but weaker. The longer they're out, the more nerfs they catch, the more perks that come out to counter them, and the more people learn to play against them. I feel like, once again, a good team will know how to play against twins. Right? They played the game long enough, they've watched enough videos, they know how to play against twins. So, they're not going to immediately give you back Victor, they're not going to stay injured, they're not going to sit alone, they're going to always have someone there, kick Victor for you. They are going to come in for body blocks every now and again, and they are going to circle of healing up, which is just severely going to hurt you. So the only decent things Twins have got going for them here are the fact that they can 3-gen pretty well. You can keep Charlotte in a 3-gen and sort of use Victor to chase people who aren't in the 3-gen. And you can also camp hooks really well. So you might be able to sneak a kill or two, but some of the survivors are playing well. Um, Twins are really inefficient when it comes to time. Even if you're playing well with twins, you're just punished by the long ass cooldowns. If I'm like really fast in a chase with Victor, I manage to down them in like 30 seconds. I'm gonna have to wait for that 5 second cooldown, switch back to Charlotte, which takes like 3 seconds, walk all the way over, pick him up, and hook him, which literally adds like an extra 20 seconds to the chase. And when you do that every time, it really does add up and sort of just makes the gens fly. So I think, yeah, Twins is going to sit as an average killer for now. Next is Demo. He's okay. Average anti-lip, average mobility. He's just such an average killer, literally the definition of an average killer. You'll probably get beat by just really good teams, especially if they have decent lip selves, but you can shred pals pretty fast. You can get some decent hits out now and again, and your portals can be useful, but overall, you're just a really average killer. Next is Bubba. Um, Bubba will get a kill or two if he manages to get rid of enough pallets before all 5 gens are done. It's basically just a race against time as Bubba. You're just like, how many pallets can I destroy before they complete every single gen? And if you manage to get most of them destroyed, you will have an absolute feed lay as this killer because people will be going down pretty fast. But a good team will usually have maybe 3 or 4 gens done by the time you get rid of like 70% of the pallets. So he's a pretty average killer. He can't down you very fast. He does have good mobility. As long as he plays safe and unhook smart, you're not going to get many kills as Bubba. Next is Nemesis, who sort of suffers like Bubba. It's basically just like how fast can you tear up, how fast can you start getting rid of pallets, and usually it's too late by the time you get rid of most of them and you're in tier 3. Your zombie RNG can be shit, they'll probably walk into that tree the entire game, but if they don't, and if you're landing your 10 strikes, you do have a bit of potential there, but he's sort of like a mix between Bubba and Twins, where he's got the time and efficiency of Twins, where he's sort of spending a lot of time whipping people, and infecting them instead of actually hitting them. And then he's got the Bubba problem where he's really only good when he's got rid of a lot of pallets, and by that time, most of the gens are probably going to be done. You probably notice I'm flying through these here, but like this video's gone on for way too long. Next is Pinhead. Pinhead might seem a bit low. I know a lot of people are putting him pretty high, but I don't think he's all that good. His anti-loop is pretty average. It's easy enough to loop a Pinhead on strong structures. For a pretty damn long time, you can hold W versus him. He can't really catch up in any way, and his chains will slow you down enough to make it worth it. He's got no mobility. It's very easy to counter chain hunts. You pick up the box and then you start solving it at any time. You don't even have to wait for someone to get picked up. If he's teleporting to you every time, that's being so inefficient because he's dropping his chases and stuff just to teleport over to you and start a new chase. So he'll never do that. So counter chain hunts very easy, and its anti-lip is pretty meh. Moving on to D tier, which is going to be the weak killers. Um, this you'll probably just get 0 kills and maybe a couple of hooks, but at the end of the day, you will feel like you basically could have said anything that game. You just unfortunately were playing a weak killer and went against a good team and you lost. So starting this tier is going to be Deathsinger. Yeah, we know how I feel about Deathsinger. He was nerfed to shit. He used to be in the A tier. I would arguably put old Deathsinger above current Oni. But yeah, he's D tier now. He got nerfed to shit. All he has is his anti-loop, which is that spear gun, and it's pretty shit now because the ADS is way too long. It can be reacted to. People can get out of the way of it. You can't really shoot people through windows because you can't aim fast enough. When you hit someone, it isn't a guaranteed hit because you have to reel them in. So yeah, Deathsinger, not a good killer anymore. Doctor's next. His anti-loop's kind of shit. I really have been ran for such a long time as Doctor in some setups because it's just inconsistent. Not to mention the latency. Sometimes I shock people and they scream and they still manage to vault a window or a pallet in time, which is annoying. His static blast is decent, but it's such a long cooldown for today's Dead by Daylight where you'll only get maybe a couple of them per game. So I feel like that cooldown should definitely be reduced. But he's got decent tracking and all, but at the end of the day, he's just a weak killer. He really hasn't got much going for him. Next is Hillbilly. I put him a wee bit higher than I used to, but he really is kind of shit. Hillbilly's so sad, man. Like, it's just so easy to loop him. Like, he's got such a shit chase. It's really what holds him back. It's just his terrible ability to down someone. Like, against a good survivor, like, if no one's a weak link, and even on a map like All Haven, like, it's just so hard to down people as Hillbilly. Because his anti-dip is just so bad. Like, you just have to get lucky, basically, and get someone out of position. And once you do that, you might get a chainsaw, which, by the way, you better not miss. Because assuming you miss it, that's going to reset the entire chase, basically, and allow him to get to more pallets. But he's still got really good mobility and a one shot, so we'll keep him in the C tier or the D tier. Next is Wraith. He's got good mobility. He's got pretty decent catch up, but that's about it. His stealth isn't that um, it's not that useful to be honest. Especially since we're swimming, we're in All Haven or something. We're not on an indoor map, so they might see you coming. Uh, the post lunge, the post cloak lunge was nerfed. It feels kind of shit now. Your anti loop is really bad, and with circle of healing and stuff in the game, your hit and run just does not work. So Wraith really has took a huge hit in the past couple of years or the couple of months. And then basically as soon as Wraith goes face, circle of healing just kind of shy on him. Lots of dead hearts and stuff like that are obviously gonna hurt him. It's just really hard to get people exposed and actually down them because you might get them exposed, but you're still just an M1 killer. And in today's Dead by Daylight, downing someone in 45 seconds without a chase power is just near impossible. It's so hard to do that it's basically just might as well not even be exposed at all. Next is Freddy, who really has been nerfed so bad. He was never really that good of a killer, like I always say, but you have to be asleep for his anti-loop to even take any effect. And even then, it's just like a weaker version of Clown. He's got the Gen teleport, but it's a pretty lengthy cooldown, so Freddy's not very good, and he really has got much going for him. So he's going to just set the bomb at D tier right now because he really just needs another rework. And then we have Clown, who some people might think is a bit high, but honestly, I don't even think Clown's that bad. Like he's weak, but those balls are actually pretty solid at getting hits at like TL walls, getting people to drop pallets super fast. He's really not that bad compared to some of the killers on this list. So I actually do think he deserves to be at the bottom of D tier and not E tier because like in some areas and all, and he does counter hold and W. You can throw balls at people and slow them down. So he's actually not that bad. I think Clown feels nice to play. It's just a pay also stronger. And now on to the E tier, which is going to be trash killers. These are killers which are just like you have no chance of winning. You can play perfectly, you can run the strongest builds possible on for this tier list, but you will just not win. You'll end up getting four escapes with like four hooks at the end of the game because there's just basically nothing you can do. So the first is going to be Myers, which I don't think Myers is as bad as some people think he is, but he is still pretty shit. Such a slow early game, and his big power up, which is tier 3, just really isn't that good. The extra lunge, like everyone knows about it. You're not really going to maybe catch people who are greedy with it. Um, and circle feeling obviously really hurts him and stuff. So Myers could definitely use a bit of a rework. I think he's just really outdated, and just every killer released has basically been better than him, other than well this one down here, which we'll talk about. Next is Legion, who have moved up a little bit just because I was sort of looking at the killers below them and being like, yeah, Legion's probably better than them. I mean, they got a bit going for them. They can get a lot of hits with that feral frenzy. They can sort of slow down the game a bit with the mending. But other than that, that's basically them. And they don't really care about circle feeling because you don't really hit against the Legion anyway, so that's always good for them. And next, we're moving on to the most recent killer, Sadako, the Onryu, the ring girl. She is really shit. Like, goddamn, she is terrible. Uh, like, really, what does this killer have going for them? Like, this killer really confuses me because I don't know what the hell behavior we're trying to do with them. So they obviously made the power like, you, the condemned status. You build it up and then you get insta killed, right? That's the whole point of the TVs. That's the whole point of the power. You teleport to the TVs, you get this condemned. The survivors pick up the tapes and all this. Okay, but they also just said they never wanted it to happen. They're like, oh, it's supposed to be like a really rare thing. It's not really supposed to happen. Okay, then why is that what her power is based around? Like, she basically doesn't have a power. You can teleport to these TVs, but you get such a easy audio cue that survivors know exactly where the hell you just teleported and are going to run from there. So you can't use it in a chase or anything. You're not going to catch people off guard, on a generator. You can use it for mobility, but it's on a 100-second cooldown, so, good luck trying to teleport there again. And then you got the manifest and demanifest, which is completely useless in a chase because you don't even get a speed boost after demanifest, and you only get it after coming out of a TV. And survivors can hear a lullaby, so they can hear you coming, they can see you coming. So what the hell is the point in this kid? She does not have a power. She just does not have a power. Like, I don't know. She needs, like, just everything buffed. She needs something. She's a wee bit of a rework, but everything about her just needs buffed. Her stealth is shit. Her anti-loop is shit. Her mobility is so limited, and the condemned might as well not exist. Like, it's just such a useless feature. So that's what I think of this killer so far. And she's really shy. Honestly, she might go down if she's not changed in the next couple of updates. She'll probably the worst killer in the game. Next is Trapper. I'm just gonna put Trapper above Pig because I do think Trapper has the chance to be lucky. You can't get a lucky couple of traps and end up just snowballing a bit of a win. Maybe get the odd basement hook or something like that and play around the 3 gen. But against good survivors, you really should just get shot as Trapper. You won't even have time to get some traps set up because people will see you as you're setting them up and then start disarming them, and then gens will start popping, and then you just get absolutely shit on as usual. So yeah, we all know Trapper's bad. He needs a rework. So that's that. And then there's Pig, who has a terrible stealth. She moves way too slow. She has terrible anti-loop um, because it's very predictable, and her reverse bear traps are completely RNG. They could buy you 10 seconds, they could buy you 2 minutes. On average, they're probably going to buy you maybe 40 seconds, which just is not enough to make up for your lack of everything else. Not to mention, all their strong add-ons were nerfed anyway, so she can't even really use the head pop out anymore. It's nowhere near as effective as it used to be. So that's my killer tier list. Um, I'm pretty satisfied with it. It's really sad to see a lot of killers just go down and down in the tier list, like Death Singer, Wraith, and Hellbilly, primarily. But tell me what you think in the comments. Make sure you listen to my reasoning, and thanks for watching.